Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we are going to review GAZZLERS VR, a game that was released on the Steam store September 14th, 2023 by developer Bolt Blaster Games. It normally retails for $14.99. I received a free Steam key through the Steam Creator Connect program to review this game. I tested the game out on the MetaQuest 2 using link cable. GAZZLERS VR is a 180 on-rails wave shooter. It is a roguelite, and this is one of those games that you will die often because you do feel underpowered at the start. There is high skill involved as far as progressing, but there is also a lot of RNG, and the game's currency is scrap, and you mostly get that by killing enemies. You can also get it by shooting down balloons and use that scrap to get permanent upgrades. Even if you die, you do keep the scrap that you have. So there is a bit of a grind getting those upgrades so you can get far into this game. And it does feel at certain points as though you're too underpowered and you're too just reliant on these upgrades in order to keep up with all the enemies on screen. And some of them become total bullet sponges unless you get these permanent or temporary upgrades. And as far as getting far in the game, it seemed to be too reliant on getting not only these permanent upgrades, which you grind for, but also getting these lucky RNG temporary upgrades that you need. You not only want to get the temporary legendary upgrades, but you also want to get synergies between all these different upgrades. It's totally possible to pass a certain level and get a downgrade to your current setup. I actually had fun with this game, but unfortunately the grind wasn't very satisfying. It's not good where you have to grind for almost every upgrade in order to get far into the game and get past the second boss. Currently only 11.7% of Steam players have been able to beat the second boss, the Bang Bang Bus. And as you can see by the end of this video on the leaderboard, I am number 33. I have spent 10.6 hours in the game, so I do qualify this as a full review. And even though I haven't beaten the game, I do qualify this as a full review just simply for the fact that I've already reached a point where I've already played the game more than the vast majority of players who have this game. I'm number 33 on the leaderboard. I've gotten past the second boss, which only 11.7% of Steam players have been able to achieve. So I think I'm able to give a full and detailed review, more than probably any other review currently on YouTube. And my too long didn't see the whole video review would be, it is a fun gameplay loop here, but it's just not balanced correctly. It feels too much like RNG is involved and like you have to grind for those upgrades in order to get far. And I don't want to say there's no skill involved. There is a lot of skill involved, and you'll probably do a lot better than me if you're very skilled. But the problem that I have is, if you look at this video where I got the high score, I believe I just got lucky with a lot of the mods that I got. They worked really well together. A lot of them were legendaries. So rather than feeling like I was getting better, I just felt I got really lucky, and that's why I was able to get farther than I had before. Plus, grinding for those permanent upgrades really helps a lot. I haven't gotten all the permanent upgrades. It is a very slow process, but it just feels like some of those permanent upgrades are necessary, such as increasing the amount of loot or mods that you get, along with increasing the chances of getting a rarer item, along with being able to do more damage or have a better shield where you can take more hits. There is a weak damage mechanic in this game where you have to hit the enemies in certain spots to increase your damage, and you'll see some very high damage numbers when you hit those weak spots and when you do the permanent upgrades to get even more damage on those weak spots, along with the mods that help you get even more damage on those weak damage spots on enemies. And that is how you take enemies down fast enough in order to keep up with all the enemies on screen and how much of a bullet sponge some of those enemies are. GAZZLERS is running on the Unity engine. On my RTX 3080, I was getting mostly 90 frames per second. However, I did notice some frame rate drops and some very slight micro stutters. Now, these micro stutters did not happen very often, but I do feel like those frame rate drops did affect reloading. And the way that reloading works in this game is that you have to point down at the ammo below you and then grab it and put it near your gun, and then it will automatically reload. There is unlimited ammo. The problem is when these frame rate drops happen, the reloading becomes inconsistent. It works maybe 9 times out of 10, but that's not good enough when things get hectic, and that reload is very critical to your survival. I have died several times when I was reaching for a reload and ended up shooting nothing because it didn't work. That is very frustrating, and honestly, I don't know why the reload here shouldn't work 100% of the time. I will say that I found that if you stare at the ammo and then stare at the gun as you're putting it near. It almost works 100% of the time, but you can't always do that. You can't always stare right at it in order to make the tracking work perfectly. This is a 180-degree wave shooter, so you can dodge, you can block, although you cannot block everything. You cannot block, for example, missiles. You have to shoot them down before they reach you. And there's also various types of enemies. That's probably the best thing about this experience, is that there is so much variety as far as the different enemy types. You also have turrets or missile launchers, and you want to get rid of them real quickly because those missiles will be going towards you. And there's also a lot of strategy as far as when to reload, when to dodge, and when to use your shield. And like I said earlier, I do believe this game has a very high skill ceiling. You have to hit your shots. You have to hit those weak spots on moving targets while dodging, while using your shield. And it can be very difficult. And not only do you have to hit your shots, but you have to anticipate some of those shots, because you'll have to hit barrels in order to get the maximum damage. You'll have to hit the turrets. You have to spot all the missiles coming towards you. So the core gameplay loop here is challenging, but it is fun as well. The problem, as I stated earlier though, is that it does have the pitfalls that a lot of roguelites have, is that it can be a barrier that a lot of casual or beginner players may not be able to cross. The permanent upgrades do help, but it is a grind to get them. Plus, you still need to hit the shots. You just can't afford to miss in this game or you'll be punished. Every second counts with all the enemies on screen and all the dangers. You need to move from target to target quickly and be able to destroy them before you are overwhelmed. And just to clarify, my problem with the game is not that it's difficult. It can be difficult, but I think it's just too difficult early on in the game. And I think the fact that only 11.7% of Steam users have beaten the second boss is testament to that. I also believe that a lot of the mod upgrades are just not good enough. It seems that I got further with certain mods, and it didn't matter if they were legendaries or just rare items. The mods where you got more bullets were always the best. The mods that did not overheat, the mods that created more damage, or the mods that increase your shields were always the best. All the other ones could be avoided. You really don't want the mod that makes a laser or that makes a shotgun. Those are just bad. So I would say that's another problem, is that too many of the mods just aren't that useful. There's only a limited amount of the mod upgrades that really will help you get far in the game. The net effect is, once you have experience and you see which mods are actually useful, you'll only select those and you'll ignore the rest when possible. You might be tempted to use a laser, but it's not really good. You might be tempted to use the pellet gun, but it's not really good. You might be tempted to get the gun that overheats, but it's not really good. So rather than being able to select different upgrade paths and try different strategies, it seems to be there's only one real strategy that works, is get more damage, get more weak spots, and anything that increases your ammunition is gold. In conclusion, this game has a fun core gameplay loop, but it's hampered by a lot of the development decisions. It's too much of a grind. It seems a lot of the mod upgrades just aren't very useful, so you don't have a lot of variety in builds. And while it does have a high skill ceiling, there's also a lot of RNG involved. So if I have to rate this game, I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. And the sad part is that I would rate it higher, but I just think some of the development decisions hold it back. Anyways, I'm Fast Lawyer. This has been my review for GAZZLERS VR. If you enjoyed my review, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day. Goodbye.